I'm very pleased to introduce one of Configit's co-founders and CSO, Chief Strategic Officer, Henrik Reif Andersen. Henrik has founded the company for more than 20 years ago, and Henrik is one of the brains behind the whole concept of configuration lifecycle management. I am very pleased to have Henrik in the studio here with me today, and I would like to hear about your thoughts on how do we see the complexity between process orientation and data-driven. So your thoughts on that, and then we will try to ask you some questions afterwards. Stage over to you, Henrik.
Thank you very much, Shahid. Thank you for the introduction. And good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of you. So I'm very pleased to be at this year's CLM Summit and have a chance to share some of my experiences and thoughts with you. So as Shahid explained, I'm going to talk about different approaches to do digital transformation, and I'm going to do that in a slightly different setting than I normally do. But the two different approaches we're going to look at are process-driven and data-driven approaches to do digital transformation of your product configuration. So the way I'm going to talk about it is by telling a story about two companies. The story is pure fiction, but it is inspired by true stories from real companies I know about and stuff they have been doing. I've added some artistic freedom and speculations for the future to the story. I'm afraid I have to warn you that as a story, it might be a little bit boring because there's going to be a clear hero which you'll identify very early on, and there's going to be another cute but a bit unfortunate character to go with the hero. There are not going to be any big surprises, no car chases, anything like that. But during the story, I'm going to make some points on digital transformation that I do hope you will appreciate. I got some quite unusual help in preparing the presentation, and I'll get back to that later. But right now, let's get started on the story. And just to spoil it up front, it's really a story about how to react to unforeseen changes and embrace them. But let's get going on it, and let me introduce the two main characters. So it's two companies, as I said, and the first company is Penguin Incorporated. And they present themselves as it's written here on the slide. It was established in 1889. They manufacture high-quality machines for packaging fish. And with over a century of experience, we deliver reliable and efficient equipment designed to withstand the harsh marine environment. So Mr. Penguin, who is the fourth generation Penguin running the company, he prefers a process-driven approach. So one process at a time, because his motto is that one step at a time has brought us to where we are. So why not continue with that? The other character is a company called Deere Inc. It's founded in 1957. It's a visionary manufacturer of sustainable forest equipment machines. And they say that our state-of-the-art machines prioritize efficiency, safety, and environment impact reduction. And with a forward-thinking approach and dedication to excellence, Deere Inc. is a clear choice for forestry equipment. And Deere is run by Mr. Deere, and his motto is data is king. So he prefers a data-driven approach when he is doing digital transformation. So what does they do in more detail? Well, as I said, Penguin Incorporated, they deliver these fish packaging machines, and they do configure to order. They've implemented that. And they do engineer to order on the more large-scale machines and the more special customer requests. They're prepared to adapt and make changes that fulfill the customer requirement. It's a bit similar in Deere Inc. They also mostly do configure to order. They have done a lot in standardizing how they run the processes and taking more and more of the ETO to become configurable. So they are now down to only 10% of the order volume is ETO and 90% is CTO. And what they do are these large machines for forest work that looks something like that on the slide here. So in many respects, the two companies are quite similar. So the value chains at Penguin and Deere at a high level, they are like we know in many manufacturing companies. So there are engineering, sales, manufacturing, and service. And as we know, I think you know, but let's just remind ourselves that a value chain that's a series of activities that a company performs to deliver a product or service to its customers. The value chain includes all of the activities that add value to the product or service, from the acquisition of raw materials to the delivery of the final product to the customer. And if you analyze the value chain, you can identify areas for improving efficiency, reduce cost, and increase value for customers, which leads to more competitive solutions in the marketplace. So as I'm sure you all have seen now, the way we like to think about this is not like a one-dimensional value chain, but we wrap it up in a circle, and then we connect it in the middle with, here we use the word modeling, but the idea is really that we believe the right approach is to get a shared view on your products and what they can offer to your customers, and share that across all the functions in an organization. So we prefer to often use the circle to illustrate that they're all connected. So at Penguin and Deer, they do these machines, and there's quite some complexity in the machines. Customers can, they do different kind of fishing. Different types of fish have different requirements. Sometimes they might just want to debone the fish, or sometimes they might want to cut them up and package them directly for the customer. Similar with the forest equipment, that might go from very simple chainsaw level things all the way up to machines that simply cut down a tree and cut it up and make it ready to be picked up. So they have a lot of complexity in the products. And as time has gone on, they are adding more and more software and capabilities in the products. So they have this complexity built into the products they need to manage. But on top of that, they are facing complexity from the life cycle of the products, which is also common what we see in manufacturing companies. So these two complexities are sort of driven by the product development, new products, and it's driven by products being in the market and being quoted and sold and delivered and maintained. So I'm trying to illustrate this in a diagram here with 2 dimensions. So up at the vertical axis, you have sort of the life cycle of the product's definition. So this is the design you have made, what the engineer had decided your product can do, how it changes over time. And on the other axis, I've sort of illustrated what could happen for one product's history, the configuration of one product from a customer ask for a quote, all the way through the end of the life of the product with the customer. So a typical situation will be like the one shown here. You have a product in development. It goes through different versions. At some point, you're ready to get it launched to the market. So you launch version A of the product, of the face packer or the forest equipment. And then your sales force is starting to create proposals for customers on it. So they typically go through a number of iterations, these proposals. It's rare that it's the first proposal you present to the customer that's going to be turned into an order. In these businesses, you will often see different revisions needed because the customer might not be happy about the price, or the salespeople might convince the customer there's more they could buy in the product, so you can upsell and do something more. So they changes over time. So here we have a view where there's been 3 revisions of this product. This can take time. Depending on the customers we have seen, this might be days, weeks, could be months, and sometimes it might take a year to get to a complete proposal. In the meantime, of course, you're continuing to develop your product portfolio. So you might have a new version of the product coming out in the middle of this process, so you launch a new one. So what do you do when you have outstanding proposals and now a new version of the product is coming out? So the typical thing is you want to update the proposal to the newest version of the product. There could be different reasons for why you want to do that. One is that perhaps you'll stop production of the old version. So it would be a pretty bad idea to quote that to the customer. You need to go to the new one. It could also be that the new version have more features that will make it easier for you to convince your customer to buy from you and not from a competitor. So you want to get it out there to have the most competitive proposal. Now let's assume that the customer is now happy. That's number 4. The customer ordered it, you build it, you deliver it, you install it, and the customer starts using it. Then time goes on. Now you might develop a new version of your product, release it to the market, and then you have the opportunity that with your existing customer, he might want an upgrade. You might want to get it to some of the features the new version of the product can do. So you can take it from how it's been maintained and then upgrade it to the new version, and it'll get into maintenance again and change. Throughout all this, you have to keep track of your product definitions in all the different versions. You have to keep track of your product configurations. You need to maintain it over the lifetime of the product with the customer. Sometimes it's called install base. And these days it's also related to the digital twin thinking, where you're going to have a digital version of all your products with all your customers throughout the lifetime. That will help you in doing service. So we are seeing here two companies, Penguin and Deere, that has these typical problems of complex products, but also complex life cycles around the products, and you have to manage all this. So let's dig into the story. So now we're back 2016, and both companies realize we have to do something in our business to be able to manage this complexity, which is just going up. So both companies decide we need to go through some digital transformation. The approach in Penguin Inc. is that, well, we'll take this process that's burdensome for us now, and that's in sales. It's difficult for our salespeople to get a quotation to our customers efficiently and without errors. Let's get that fixed. So they describe the process they have. They want to streamline it. They find a CPQ tool that has a nice, appealing UI. Salespeople like it. They cut the project down to a minimum because they want to keep costs down and they want to get out and get some value out of it. So they focus on the sales part of the value chain and get that fixed. They do the project, probably takes a year, go live, it starts creating value for them. In Deere, they take a slightly different approach. They have a similar problem. The biggest pain isn't sales. It's difficult to get the quotes out with the forest equipment at speed. Competitors are causing trouble. They have many errors. They want to fix that. So they also want a CPQ project. But they have just hired a new chief digitalization officer, which more and more companies are doing. And he's aware that we're going to transform our business for the future. So we need to go beyond CPQ. They still want to fix the problem in sales. They want a CPQ tool, but they do see that more things might be coming. So let's take a broader perspective. So they managed to get engineering involved. They are not putting any burden on engineering. They have to change anything, but they just want to get them in the loop because engineering is the source of the key data you need when you create a proposal. So they want to get engineering involved. The CLM vision has just come out, and they buy that idea and go for it. So this is shaping their thinking in how they want to do that. They invest in a cross-functional data platform that can align existing data in engineering, add what's needed in sales, and then get it into a nice CPQ tool. And while they're at it, they integrate to the ERP system because it turns out, there's an easy way to get the hook into their SAP ERP system. And that will mean that when they take an order, it'll go directly to manufacturing without any configuration errors, without any manual handover or sources or potential sources of errors. So this is where some of the, I've taken inspiration from some existing companies, and in my story, I'll just point out that's just one case story that has been presented at earlier CLM summits that you'll be able to find in the base of earlier presentations. But typically, whenever I get to a point here, there'll be more than one case story. So if you're interested about it, you can reach out, and I'm sure we can find some cases that might inspire you to see how did the companies really go about doing that. That was 2016. Both companies are happy. They got their CPQ solution. And then comes 2018. And now the competitors are moving. In Penguin Inc., they discover that a competitor now has a dealer portal. They're using resellers more and more, and dealers can now go and configure the products themselves. They don't need to call their salespeople. The same happens with the forest equipment. And 1 year later, the competitor also makes a self-service version where the customers themselves can go in, start exploring the product, do the initial configurations with their needs, and then reach out to a dealer or internal sales and get the process completed. So they need to respond. So what do we do in Penguin? Well, dealer selling, that's a new process. So they want to improve that process. So how do we do that? They define a project to improve that process. there's a risk here because they might need a new vendor because they were very focused on doing CPQ for their salespeople. And perhaps the CPQ system do not have functionality for doing dealers. So they might have to pick another vendor if they were unlucky in their first choice of CPQ vendor. And a year after, when the customer self-service needs to be launched as well, it's the same situation. Did they pick the right vendor that could also do that? Or do they need a new vendor again? At least they need a new project. So you can sort of see where I'm going here. What happens in Deere? Well, they decided for this end-to-end perspective. It's already connected to manufacturing. They are using data from engineering. And they picked something that has an open platform. It has APIs. So what they do when they need to put a dealer portal on it, they take the data they already have, use the APIs, get it into their dealer portal, which is based on an e-commerce version they get from another vendor, and then they hook it up. Same data creation processes, same quality assurance they already got, and it's integrated to the backend systems already, so no changes needed there. The self-service portal can be done in the same manner. It's adding a UI on top of the APIs that has access to the data. And you can sort of see the different perspectives they're taking here. One thinking about the process we have to improve, the other thinking a little bit further than that. In Deere, they also want to improve the process, but they sort of realized that data is the key. If we can make sure we have our valuable product definitions, product data available somewhere where we can access it from different channels, then we have a much better chance of reacting to change. And they benefit from that here. A sample case story you can find is from Case New Holland, from one of the earlier CLM summits. Everything is good, 2018, then 2020. COVID hits the world, and we all learn how to wear surgical masks. And a lot of things happen in the world, a lot of uncertainties. And one of the things that really hit manufacturers are the supply chain disruptions. They happen in a lot of areas, but a very prominent one is in the semiconductor area. There was already high demand, and suddenly some factories shut down because of COVID, where they produce the chips. Supply chains break down, you can't get them delivered. It's a big mess. And that also hits our two companies here. So what are you going to do? So in Penguin, and of course this is fiction, but there are very similar stories, and you might recognize it from your own company. They're suddenly hit by this chip shortage, and there's part of the deboning unit they can no longer deliver because it uses that semiconductor. So what are they going to do? They gotta, manually figure out what's needed to adapt to that, how we're going to change the setup in CPQ, what versions of the product are really affected by that. A lot of people have to go into a lot of workshops and meetings to figure this out, and they realize suddenly that this focusing on sales, it's also related to engineering and manufacturing, because this is a problem that hits manufacturing because you can't build what you could sell, and engineering needs to get involved because they have to help figure out what versions of the product do we have to sort of take off the shelves in sales, and what are we going to do about the orders we have already in the bank that needed that. So not a brilliant situation. If you had gone for the data-driven and had thought the end-to-end, make sure you have things linked, you're in a much better position to react to this sudden and unforeseen situation. And nobody could have foreseen that, I would claim. So what they do is that because they have this shared view on the product definitions, they can very quickly find out what versions of our product are affected. They can take them out so they are not offered in sales, so they stop the demand for that. They can go through the backlog, find out what orders were affected, and then try to find an alternative that does not have that problem using the rule engine. And this you can do in 24 hours. And if you think that's a little bit overselling it, I recommend you look at the case story by JLR, who explained exactly how they handled this issue using the CLM thinking, which I think is quite remarkable, and showing that if you do think data, quality master data, integration to the right units, you're in a pretty good position to respond to something you had no idea of anticipating would hit you. And a similar story happens 2 years after. There's war in Europe. And of course, it creates a lot of uncertainty, fluctuations in demand, and there are sanction rules. European Union, I think they've now gone through 10 versions of sanctioning rules. And every time as a manufacturer, you have to see what's the effect. Of course, it's going to affect your supply chain just as under COVID. So you need to adapt because the parts you might no longer get because they're coming from a region that's sanctioned, or they're from a region which is at war and have no chance of supplying the parts. So you have to adapt to that, supply chain disruptions. But you also have some other difficulties here with compliance because you have to comply with the sanctioning rules. So you might have a situation, something you used to sell in a certain region, you can no longer sell there. The parts can no longer be used. You have to react to that. And how do you do that in Penguin? And they don't have any immediate system support. So they have to, act quickly, workshops, meetings, try to figure it out. And what do they do at Deere? They use a collaborative platform, add market rules quickly, making sure you don't offer something that's forbidden in regions you shouldn't. And through the shared source of truth from engineering and sales, you can find out what's the relationship between parts I can't get because they're now sanctioned and the products I offer, and I can make decisions on how to adapt and quickly release it to market. So this compliance rule, I think an interesting inspirational case story there is from Ecolabel, from earlier CLM summits, which have captured tons of compliance rules in certification. And I think it's amazing how far they have pushed that. So I think that's a testimony to how you can sort of capture compliance rules and use them in your business. So this is all history. So I allow myself to try to look a couple of years ahead, and of course it's now all going to be guesswork. But I think that's the point. Nobody really knows. So prepare for the unforeseen for the future. But let me just speculate what might happen. So I think we should just ask ourselves the question, what if these chatbots suddenly become the preferred interface for interactions? If everybody wants to talk to IT through a language model, through language interactions. And why is this suddenly a topic? Well, let me just show you some of the headlines that I captured recently. So one is this new tool called ChatGPT. And this is an example of a new type of artificial intelligence, which is a language model, a large language model. And what it means is that they basically trained the thing on all books in the world, everything on the internet, and it's learned to speak in natural language. You can talk to it in all major languages in the world. It doesn't care. It can translate between any languages. It doesn't care. You can ask it amazing questions. I've been a little bit blown away. So, a year ago, they were nowhere near like this, but it's suddenly exploding. And one of the indicators we can see is that ChatGPT reached 100 million users 2 months after launch. It's the fastest adoption of any new technology that has ever been measured. The closest were TikTok, which took 9 months, and Instagram, which took 2.5 years to reach 100 million users. But they did in 2 months. So something is really going on here. And within 1 week, there are 3 announcements here I want to point out that I think is an indication that something is going to change big time in the world right now. So Microsoft is bringing this ChatGPT technology to Word, Excel, and Outlook. So they're going to use this language model AI to power how you can work with Office tools. So it'll help you in Word to generate text, summaries, spell check, translate. I can't even imagine what else you could do with that in there. And in Excel and in Outlook. It's there. It's coming very soon. In the same week, OpenAI, who's behind this ChatGPT, they opened up to support plugins. So up to that point, it was a language interaction. You could interact with it, query what it knew, have it create poems or all kind of funny stuff you could do, but also very useful stuff. But they opened it up with plugins. So now the AI can go out and use the plugin to query other systems. So it can do online check on the website. And if you want to have a look at it, I'm sure you can find the video I watched where they're demonstrating how you can use that, set it up with plugins, and then you can, for instance, ask it about booking a restaurant. So you can say, I'm in San Francisco over the weekend, I'm a vegetarian, please find a nice vegetarian restaurant to me for Saturday. And on Sunday, I'd like to cook myself. Can you recommend a recipe? I really like this and that. And then the AI can find the restaurant, make a booking. You just need to go in, confirm. It'll give you a recipe. It fills up your shopping basket with the recipes. You can go in, decide if you want to order it, and then you can order it online. Just an example of how the AI can now interact with other systems. And of course, for me, this is clear. This is going to interact with a configurator. And I know a configurator that might be fun to connect to it. So it could help you configure a product as well. And then the same week, of course, Google also released Bard AI chatbot because there's tough competition now. And it's going extremely fast. So that's the prediction that might happen in 2024. It might happen in B2B and manufacturers, I think. Whether it's 24, 25, I don't know. But I have a feeling this might come, and it might come very quick. And then we'll have to respond to it. So I guess you can see what's going to happen now. So what's they going to do at Penguin? You know, we need a new project. Who are going to help us? How long is it going to take? And what is all this chat stuff going on? So I think we're going to end up, they're going to be pretty unhappy now. What in Deer? Well, they have the master data in a good shape. They have APIs to access it. They realize that now there's plugin capability in the chatbot. We're going to figure it out. It's not going to be a big deal. So I think you're going to see a much more happy Deer walking around on the corridors at that situation. And then let me move to the last year on my timeline here, which is 26. And now, of course, it becomes even more uncertain what's going to happen. And here's one guess of what might happen. And that is that this metaverse thing might be launched. This virtual space might get there. And customers might want to use it for experiencing your products. It could be in the buying process. They might want to experience it before they buy it, see how it works, operates, get a feeling. And at this point, I'm pretty sure Penguin is going to be pretty lost in the metaverse. So the metaverse, I must admit, I had to look it up. It's so new to me. I don't really get this totally, so I had to look it up. And here's what I got. And the metaverse is a fully immersive and interactive digital environment that can be accessed by anyone, anywhere in the world, using virtual reality or augmented reality technology. So for companies, the metaverse presents a range of opportunities to engage with customers and create new revenue streams. What do they do at Deer? They use their platform. They bring configuration to the metaverse. Of course, the metaverse is very visual, so they need to add visual versions of their products. How do they do that? Well, they can take the CAD data from the engineering systems, which is already connected to the platform. So there's a link between the configuration you do in sales and the CAD drawings. The CAD drawings as such are not good enough for a place like the metaverse. You have to do something with them, but they're a very good starting point. You have to throw details away that you don't need to bother the customer with. You have to put textures on so they look nice and get nice reflections and so on, but there are tools that can help with that, for instance, from Unity. So they take their CAD data, shine them up, do the connection, add it to the product data they have in the platform, and there they are. The products are available in Metaverse. And if you need some inspiration there, I recommend taking a look at some of the earlier presentations on what can be done with Unity and ACE. At this stage, at least, I cannot see any clear indications on exactly what's going to be the big business in Metaverse. But there are definitely opportunities, and some of those that are pointed out is that customers can experience the product before they buy it. You can go on a virtual tour with your tractor or whatever, try it out if you want to do that. But it can also be used for service. So you might do service in a mixed situation where you have a physical product, you might put a camera on it, you get into this virtual world and somebody can instruct you how to unmount things. You can see it on a virtual version of the product before you do it. So there are many opportunities, and it might hit us a few years from now, and we better be prepared to react to it. So I'm coming to the end of my story. So my last question is here, so who would you bet on for the future? Who's best prepared? Penguin or deer? And I admit it's a pretty rhetorical question, but just ponder a bit about it and whether or not a data-driven thinking could be a useful approach. So I promised to talk a bit about the unusual help I've gotten in preparing the presentation. And credits are due to two new friends of mine. It's Midjourney. That's an AI who can create pictures. It's created all the pictures I used on penguins and deers and whatnot. And it did it from a textual interface. So the way you do it is you give a prompt, you ask for something, and it'll create a picture for you. This picture is new. It's created based on your prompt. It's not a copy of anything. It's not shot a stock photo. It's a unique creation. And if you subscribe, like I did for $10, you can use it freely. It's not you don't have copyright, but you can use it. That's what I did. And I created an account in the morning. I got these pictures in the afternoon. I'm not good at graphics. I'm amazed. This is going to change something. And as an example, I have one of prompt here. I say a deer as a modern businessman in a corporate setting. And that gave me the number 2 picture with the deer in the suit. And the suit fits. And I really like the penguin. If you take a look at his suit, you can see the arms look like flappers on a penguin. The AI did that. I did nothing for that. And I must admit, I also used ChatGPT for all the longer texts because I got a bit lazy. So if you go back and look, all the text that has a little green dot, they were created by ChatGPT. So they helped me create these two fixtures companies. 1 year ago, if somebody had told me I could use this for the presentation this year, I would not have believed them. So with that, I just want to say we're in a space that can move very fast, and we better be prepared. And I strongly believe that if you take good care of your product definitions, your product data, you are in a better position to react to the unknown than if you don't. So with that, I'll conclude my presentation and get back to you, Shade.
Thank you very much, Henrik, for the presentation. Very exciting to hear the way the things are changing. And I personally know that you are hooked into this because I had the pleasure to travel with you a few days back, and you were just creating those images one after the other one, just like a little kid who got a new toy. So that was very amazing to look at. And I think that it's very interesting to see, some of the key points I took from your presentation is really how can we in enterprises make sure that we are prepared, for the unexpected changes, really. That's one of the key topics. And the other one is also to ensure whatever we do, we keep the end-to-end in the focus and not just focus on one specific challenge, but keep the focus on what could be the end-to-end solution while we are solving this one problem.
Yeah. So I think it's when I look through these case stories with the customers and try to take some learnings from them, I think, my key takeaway is really, if you have your house in order, you have your data in order, you can share it through the organization and you can collaborate on it so people see the same thing and they can sort of stay in their own world, because if you're an engineer, you need powerful CAD tools. And if you're in sales, you need your sales tool, your Salesforce CRM or whatever it is, and you feel comfortable and productive there, but you still need to collaborate and you still need to see the same version of the truth with the products. And if you get your house in order and do that, all the stories I could see is then you're pretty well prepared to what's going to come and hit you. You don't know what it is. Some of it you can predict and you can plan for it. You can take years to go there, but something is going to come you did not expect. And if you have this sort of collected record of your products and your configurations, that you can work with, you can quickly react. And some of the reaction time, I was amazed that our customers could react so quickly to a dramatic change, simply because they got their house in order and they had the end-to-end view. So they were not sort of sitting in silos that suddenly have to come together and scratch their head and find out, what's it going to impact on you and so on. It's much more transparent. So I think that's a testimony to the CLM thinking and also the recognition that Johan talked about, that the analysts are also now pointing to. There's something extremely valuable here you should be thinking about. So